I caught my fiancée and my best friend cheating the night before our wedding, so I hijacked the ceremony, exposed them on screen, and took revenge. Brush that feeling away. Looking back, I realized that my own gut had been screaming at me for months before my wedding day. It hissed that my fiancée, Holly, and my best friend, Kylan, were getting too close, far closer than was normal. But I was busy. Busy with my demanding job at a software consultancy, busy planning the wedding Holly wanted, busy trying to please her very demanding parents, Richard and Marjorie Chambers. Even though I occasionally felt a pang of jealousy seeing Holly and Kylan laugh together in a corner, or noticed how Kylan's eyes lingered on her in ways that made me uneasy, I simply didn't have the energy to wrestle with those suspicions. I was exhausted by too many 12-hour workdays, by the calls and errands that come with a massive wedding. My parents, loving as they were, had neither the means nor the know-how to assist with all the lavish demands Holly and her mother insisted upon. That left me juggling about 100 responsibilities with no room to breathe. But the red flags were there. For instance, whenever Holly and Kylan texted, far more often than a best friend and fiancé should, I'd catch them smiling at messages or referencing jokes they refused to share with me. If I asked, "Hey, what's so funny?" they'd respond with dismissive shrugs or good-natured but evasive remarks, just a silly meme, inside joke, nothing you'd be interested in, and so on. I'd known Kylan since our freshman year of college. We shared a cramped dorm, pulled all-nighters for finals, and covered for each other when we needed it. We were, I believed, as close as brothers. And maybe that's why I managed to stifle my own concerns. I just couldn't imagine him betraying my trust so brazenly. He's my best man, I told myself. He's got my back, right?
Right.
As for Holly, she came from a much wealthier background. The Chambers family prided themselves on their local prominence, Richard Chambers being heavily involved in local politics, and Marjorie Chambers acting as the imperious socialite who graced every fundraiser and charity ball with condescending smiles, made sure everyone knew their status. When I proposed to Holly, they grudgingly accepted me. While not explicitly rude, they were always sure to remind me that I was marrying up, that the Chambers name had standards to maintain. Their arrogance showed in the wedding planning as well. "We'll split the cost 50-50, her parents had said, but they pushed for a lavish venue, extravagant centerpieces, a string quartet, and a guest list that ballooned to almost 300. My folks, a retired schoolteacher dad and a near-retiring nurse mom, had to dig into their savings to meet their half. No matter how many times I tried to set boundaries, it always ended with Holly's mother saying, "We can't cut corners, we're the Chambers, or think of what people will say. You want your bride to look cheap on her big day?" That language grated on me, but Holly sided with her parents more often than not. She'd wave me off, let them have their fun. "We'll only do this once, right?" Famous last words. A week before the wedding, Kylan, grinning confidently, offered to handle hotel reservations for out-of-town guests. "You've got enough on your plate. Let me take care of it," he said, flashing phone screenshots. It felt like college days, trusting him with something important. Relieved, I thanked him. The night before the wedding, our families gathered for the rehearsal dinner at the lavish venue. Holly, in an almost bridal white dress, flitted between her father's relatives, who barely acknowledged me. My parents lingered awkwardly, uncomfortable with the wealth on display. Kylan gave me occasional thumbs-ups from across the room. After the run-through, we moved to the lounge for an after-party. Spirits were high, until I noticed Holly was missing. Calls went straight to voicemail. A bridesmaid casually said she felt overwhelmed and stepped out for air. I shrugged. It was the night before the wedding, and maybe she just needed space. Time trickled by, and Kylan disappeared too. At first, I wasn't overly suspicious. Possibly he went to pick up more champagne or something. But a nagging voice in my head whispered, "Look for him. Look for her." A half hour turned into an hour. Curiosity burned, so I grabbed my phone, scrolled through social media, and checked if Holly or Kylan had posted anything. Sure enough, I stumbled onto Holly's Instagram. She had accidentally uploaded a short story that she deleted within seconds, but the damage was done. In that fleeting clip, I recognized a hotel hallway, the golden pattern of the carpet, and a partially visible door number. It was definitely not the corridor at our wedding venue. Different place, different hotel. My heart clutched in my chest. The gut instinct that I'd suppressed for months roared to life. Go see for yourself. I needed to see for myself. I remember driving through the busy streets near the hotel district, my mind racing with possible explanations. Could she have gone to a friend's room? Could Kylan be helping her pick something up? My heart hammered as I thought, what if they really are together? That's insane. That can't be real. But the part of me that was now fully awake refused to shut up. I knew Kylan had made some recent hotel bookings for guests, but I didn't have the details. So I parked, walked into the lobby of one of the more upscale boutique hotels, and tried to see if the front desk recognized me from earlier visits or from Kylan's group reservations. My plan was half-formed, but as luck would have it, I saw Kylan's car parked near the entrance. If that wasn't a sign, I didn't know what was. I reached the 8th floor, my eyes combing every door number, searching for the one I'd glimpsed in the Instagram video, room 846, 847. My pulse raced, each step echoing in the silent corridor. The night air outside the windows was pitch black, the overhead lighting felt too bright, like it was exposing me before I could confront them. But I didn't want a confrontation, not yet. Something in me insisted on gathering proof so I could never question my sanity afterward. So I snuck forward, pressing my ear to the door of room 847. Initially, I heard nothing. Heart pounding, I quietly tested the handle, and to my shock, the door wasn't deadbolted from the inside. Someone had carelessly left it locked only by the electronic mechanism. Kylan, ironically, had slipped me a master key card earlier in the month, citing wedding emergencies just in case something goes wrong with guest rooms, he'd said. I fished it out of my pocket, slid it into the slot, and after a moment, the tiny LED turned green. The handle unlocked with a soft click. They gave me the weapon for their own undoing, I thought. My stomach lurched. I slipped inside soundlessly. The lights in the room glowed dim, soft shadows flickered on the walls. I heard a quiet, intimate murmur, and my blood started boiling. There, on the king-sized bed, Holly was entangled with Kylan. Bare-skinned, her hair in disarray, she was lying sideways across the plush bedding, and Kylan was leaning over her. They were in the midst of a hushed conversation, something I didn't quite catch, but her giggle was enough. That was all I needed to see. My fury surged so violently that I instinctively curled my hands into fists. I wanted to hurl curses, to rip Kylan off the bed and beat him senseless for daring to do this. But some calm corner of my mind said, "Stop. Show them no reaction. Take the proof." I recalled how the wedding was happening in less than 12 hours. I wanted them to stand at that altar with me, believing I was none the wiser, so I could publicly unravel their perfect facade. Let them think they got away with it. With shaking hands, I raised my phone, switched it to video mode, and zoomed in. My thumb hovered above the record button. Yes, I told myself, you want them to see exactly what you caught later. I recorded a few seconds of them in bed, capturing the details, Holly's face, Kylan's posture, and the date time stamp in the corner. They had no clue I was there. Kylan whispered something about "we'll never get caught," followed by Holly's low laugh. The camera caught it perfectly. My entire body was trembling with rage. I forced myself to remain silent so they wouldn't notice. No confrontation. This is not the time, I repeated that mantra over and over, like an anchor for my sanity. Once I had enough footage, I carefully stepped back, filming as I retreated, making sure the phone's microphone picked up every humiliating detail. I closed the door just as quietly as I'd opened it, then fled, nearly running down the hallway to the elevator. It felt like I had a bomb strapped to my chest, one that would detonate the next day. Outside, the night air smacked me like a shock of cold water. My heart hammered like I'd sprinted a marathon. Waves of fury coursed through me, threatening to bubble up into a scream or meltdown. I felt the phone in my sweaty hand, digital proof that the people I trusted had stabbed me in the back. I took a few minutes to calm down, forced my breathing into a steadier rhythm, climbed into my car and drove aimlessly until I found a 24-hour diner. There, in a shabby booth, I reviewed the footage in private. It left no doubt. That was when the seeds of a savage plan took root. If they wanted to humiliate me, they'd done a fine job, but I wouldn't be the only one humiliated tomorrow. I didn't sleep that night. By 5 a.m, I had downed 3 cups of coffee, scribbled notes for my wedding presentation, and mentally rehearsed how to manipulate the schedule so that I'd have control of the microphone and projector. Our venue provided top-of-the-line AV equipment so we could show a slideshow of our childhoods and relationship milestones. I'd meticulously curated photos of Holly's baby pictures, my own slightly embarrassing teenage shots, snapshots of us together at the beach. All of that could be replaced in an instant. I knew the system well enough to switch the feed to whatever I wanted, a thumb drive, a phone, any external source. Part of me hesitated, haunted by the knowledge that I'd effectively be showing a snippet of a private, very intimate act. But then I remembered how they had done it behind my back the night before the wedding. The cruelty of that betrayal justified, at least in my mind, the severity of my payback. Actions have consequences. At 6:30 a.m., I headed home to my apartment, which Holly and I had shared for almost a year. Unsurprisingly, she wasn't back yet. If she thought I was oblivious, maybe she'd snuck in sometime around dawn, slipped into the guest room, and planned to pretend she was just out for a girls' night. But when I opened the door, everything was still as we'd left it. The living room light was off, the bedroom neat. I walked into the bedroom that once felt warm and inviting. Now it felt like foreign territory. I saw her phone charger on the bedside table, the ring box I'd given her still displayed on the dresser. The heartbreak flared again, but so did the anger. She'd thrown away everything we'd built for a quick fling with my best friend. I set my phone to vibrate and tried to rest for an hour or two, though my mind wouldn't quiet. Around 9 a.m., Holly finally showed. I heard the soft beep of the door unlocking. I pretended to be asleep, waiting to see if she'd tiptoe in. Sure enough, her footsteps were light, as if she didn't want me to wake up and ask where she'd been. She didn't even peek into the master bedroom. I heard her slip into the guest room, probably to do damage control on her appearance. Half an hour later, I emerged, feigning a yawn like everything was normal. She was sitting at the kitchen island, hair brushed, wearing a casual t-shirt and sweatpants. She gave me a tired smile. "Morning, babe," she said. "I crashed with a friend last night. Too much wine at the rehearsal dinner, you know how it is." I smiled back, my mind racing with thoughts of last night's video. "Must have been some party," I responded calmly. "Just glad you're okay." I gave her a quick peck on the cheek, resisting every urge to say something scathing. Her eyes flickered with a bit of relief, maybe a bit of caution. She's trying to read me, I realized. She must have worried that I suspected something, but my expression revealed nothing except mild acceptance. "I want you to think you got away with it." I had to keep up the charade for just a few more hours. The wedding was set for noon at the elite Wentworth country estate, chosen for its prestige. My parents arrived at 10 a.m. Excited but unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. I greeted them with hollow hugs. My mother beamed in her pastel dress. My father patted my back, likely recalling the quiet boy I once was. Forcing a smile, I told them I had last-minute AV setups. "See you soon." Holly and her bridesmaids fussed over hair and makeup in their suite. Kylan was likely in the groomsman's room, but I had no intention of finding him. Let him think I was still in the dark. I slipped into the AV booth overlooking the ballroom. Tony, the technician, was testing the microphone and projector. "This is the groom, Daniel," he told a colleague. "He's got some extra stuff he wants to show, right?" "Yeah," I confirmed with an easy grin. I pulled out a flash drive from my jacket pocket. "I've got a surprise video instead of the usual couples slideshow. I'm going to do something more, dramatic." Tony chuckled. "Hey, it's your big day, man. Just make sure you tell me the cue so I can swap out the files." I tapped the flash drive. "I'll give you a signal. Maybe I'll just say, roll it, and trust me, you won't miss it." A sliver of guilt gnawed at me, but I quashed it. They brought this on themselves. The ceremony was slated to start promptly at noon in the grand ballroom, an opulent space with high ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and meticulously laid out chairs for guests. By 11:50, the place was nearly full. People were chattering excitedly, snapping selfies, exchanging pleasantries. The bride's side was large, dominated by the chamber's social circle, local dignitaries, business associates, and extended family. My own smaller circle of close friends, colleagues, and relatives was there too, though overshadowed by the chamber's crowd. The plan was for me, as the groom, to wait at the altar with the officiant while the wedding party entered. But at 11:55, I was missing. The officiant, an old friend of Richard Chambers, looked around, confused. Holly's father started checking his watch, scowling. My mother shifted in her seat anxiously. Marjorie Chambers, in a prim lilac suit, frowned as she whispered to some guests, "Where on earth is Daniel? Is he always this unreliable?" She loved any chance to undermine me. Holly, hidden away in the back, would have been panicking at this point, but I wasn't there to see it. I watched from the second-floor balcony behind curtains, scanning the crowd, measuring the energy. When the clock read 12:01, the doors were officially supposed to open for the bride's processional. Instead, there was confusion and a low murmur of concern. Perfect time to drop the bomb. I slipped back into the AV booth, where Tony hovered nervously over the soundboard. He saw me and said, "Hey man, we're like 2 minutes behind. Are you good?" "Absolutely," I replied with a tight smile, stepping to the microphone connected to the overhead speakers. My heart banged so fiercely I thought my ribs would crack, but rage and adrenaline fueled me. "Let's do this." I pressed the mic switch. Throughout the grand ballroom, my voice echoed, "Good afternoon, everyone." A wave of hush swept over the seated crowd. They turned to look around, expecting me to appear at the altar. Instead, they saw no one. Confusion flared. Holly's father stood up, looking around. Holly's mother put a hand to her chest. "Hello," I continued. "The officiant is here, but the ceremony starts—" "Actually, there won't be a ceremony." Gasps fluttered through the hall, wave after wave. People craned their necks, trying to pinpoint my location. Some even stood up to see if I was by the sound system. Holly must have been losing her mind in the bridal suite. Tony gave me a wide-eyed glance. I nodded for him to play the video. He fumbled, inserted my flash drive, and waited for me to say the cue. "Before we get too upset," I said, my voice bouncing off the walls, "I have something to show all of you. A brief video. Tony, if you would, roll it." On the massive projector screen, which had been displaying a looping slideshow of me and Holly in happier moments, the image cut out for a brief second. The screen went black, then a grainy but unmistakable video started to play, the footage I'd captured less than 12 hours earlier. Holly and Kylan tangled in the bedsheets, voices audible, the date and timestamp shining in the lower right corner. I'd edited it just enough to highlight the moment Kylan's face turned to the camera, though he never actually saw me. I'd zoomed in so one could read the clock behind them, clearly labeling it as the night before this wedding. Shocked cries erupted, a hush of disbelief followed, then a roar of outraged whispers. Some guests froze, hands pressed to their mouths. One older aunt literally shrieked, "Oh dear Lord." Richard Chambers, who was standing, nearly toppled over his seat. Marjorie's face contorted like she'd swallowed acid. Kylan, presumably in the groomsmen's lounge, might have heard the gasps and realized what was happening. "Too late now, buddy." Even from the booth I heard frantic footsteps and shouts. The officiant stared helplessly at the screen, powerless. A bridesmaid let out a wail, and from somewhere off to the side I heard someone yell, "Turn that off!" I decided to let it loop for a full 10 seconds, long enough for everyone to absorb the date stamp, the explicit visuals, the knowledge that it was my fiancée and my best friend. Then I cut the feed. The screen went dark again, but the screaming chaos continued. The entire crowd was in a state of meltdown. Tony's face was pale. "What the hell, man?" he muttered, but I just stepped away from the mic. Down below, I saw Holly appear at the entrance in her wedding gown, face drawn in horror. Her hair was meticulously styled, her makeup flawless, but nothing could hide her panic. "Turn it off!" she screeched in a voice pitched with desperation. She seemed to have missed the actual footage by a few seconds, but the shell-shocked expressions told her enough. Marjorie rushed toward the projector, jabbing her finger at the staff. "Who let this happen?" she spat. Tony, cowering in the booth, had no time to respond. Richard Chambers stormed into the center aisle, roaring like an enraged bull. "Daniel! Where is Daniel?" He pivoted in circles, face mottled red. The guests parted around him, uncertain whether to stay or flee. My mother was in tears. My father stood protectively next to her, glaring at the Chambers, trying to figure out what was happening. Some of Holly's relatives shrank away, terrified that the scandal would taint them. A woman in the second row fainted, her neighbor shaking her shoulder and calling for water. This was absolute bedlam. Holly searched the crowd, her eyes scanning every corner, the train of her gown dragging behind her like a ghost. Finally, she caught sight of me on the second-floor balcony. I stepped forward, looking down over the railing. The entire congregation followed her gaze, locking onto me like I was a ringmaster at a particularly macabre circus. "What are you doing?" Holly shrieked, voice cracking with outrage. "You're not supposed to see me before the wedding, you coward." A bizarre complaint under the circumstances. I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction that, even in this meltdown, she clung to the superstitious tradition about not letting the groom see the bride. "There is no wedding," I announced, letting my voice carry. "You made sure of that last night." She froze, tears glittering in her eyes. "Daniel, please, let's just talk this out. Not in front of everyone." "Why not?" I shot back. "You had no problem cheating on me with my best friend. I'd say everyone who spent money and time traveling here deserves to know why the ceremony is canceled." Her mother, furious and red-faced, pointed an accusing finger at me. "You've ruined the Chambers' name in front of all these prominent guests. Don't you realize how humiliating this is for us?" I laughed, a bitter bark of a laugh. Humiliating? Holly and Kylan humiliated me. I'm just returning the favor. There was a sudden commotion at the front of the room. Kylan himself emerged, wearing his half-done tux, hair disheveled, eyes wide with panic. "Daniel, let's talk about this." He tried to approach the dais. I dashed down the stairs into the main hall to face him. Holly was right there too, scrambling to block me, her big white dress getting in the way. I shoved past the tool. I felt physically ill with rage, my fists clenched so hard they ached. Kylan stammered, "Man, you took it out of context. It was..." She was upset. We just..." I couldn't stand to hear him. The images of them in bed, recorded by my phone, replayed in my head. A savage wave of fury tore through me, and I slapped him across the face, the blow so forceful it echoed in the hush that fell over the crowd. Kylan staggered, hitting the floor with a pained groan. The entire audience gasped. Holly shrieked, "Stop it! You're hurting him!" She knelt beside Kylan, ignoring her dress as it bunched around her. Marjorie let out a strangled cry. "You monster, assaulting him in front of everyone!" I pointed at Kylan, who was struggling to get up. "He's the monster, along with your daughter. They set me up to look like a fool right under my nose. Now the world knows exactly who they are." A pregnant silence enveloped the hall. Holly glared at me, tears streaming. "Daniel, I'm sorry, okay? Just stop." I turned to the guests, many of whom were filming with their phones, capturing every second of the chaos. "Thank you all for coming," I said with sarcastic formality, "but there will be no wedding today. Sorry if you wanted a nice ceremony. Instead, you get the truth." With that, I stormed out of the main hall, shoving open the heavy double doors. Holly wailed my name, but I refused to look back. My parents followed, stunned but resolute. My mother accompanied me, horrified by the fiasco, tears in her eyes. "Daniel, are you sure all of that was real?" she asked in a quiet voice once we arrived at my apartment. I nodded, showing her the original, unedited clip, time-stamped for the night before. Her face fell in utter shock. "Oh dear God," she murmured, hugging me. "I'm so sorry." My father stood behind her, uncertain what to say. "You did what you had to do, son." He patted my shoulder, but I could see the heartbreak in his eyes. "We lost a lot of money on this wedding, but we'd rather that than see you living a lie." I thanked them both, telling them to go home and rest. They left after many reassurances of their unconditional love despite everything. A part of me felt guilty for how dramatically the wedding blew up. My parents had to witness that humiliating spectacle after sacrificing so much, but I hadn't known how else to handle it. Quietly canceling the wedding wouldn't have given me closure. I needed the truth out in the open. Once alone, I set about moving Holly's stuff out of the apartment that same night. I hauled boxes from the closet, collecting all her clothes, her extensive shoe collection, her makeup sets, and even the random decor items she'd insisted on. I packed them meticulously, labeling the boxes with a black marker. Then I rented a small U-Haul trailer online, loaded it up near midnight, and drove it to her parents' estate, a sprawling mansion in a gated community, a monument to the Chambers' inflated sense of worth. The security guard at the entrance recognized me from previous visits, and upon seeing the U-Haul asked warily, "Everything okay, Mr. Harper?" "Just dropping off Holly's belongings," I said evenly. He opened the gate. I parked outside the front door under the grand portico, where stone pillars and a wide mahogany door seemed to tower above me in judgment. My anger still simmered, but mostly I felt an odd calm. The adrenaline had died down and the finality of my actions was sinking in. I stacked the boxes neatly on the doorstep, hammered the brass knocker once, and walked back to the truck. As I left, I saw a light turn on inside, probably Richard or Marjorie coming to see who dared disturb them at 1 a.m. Let them discover their precious daughter's belongings. She could take up residence in her old bedroom for all I cared. I was awakened the next morning by the sound of furious knocking on my apartment door. For a groggy second, I thought I'd dreamt it. Then came the familiar voice of Richard Chambers. "Open up! We know you're in there!" I pulled on a t-shirt and swung the door open to find Holly, Richard, and Marjorie in the hallway, all wearing expressions of thunderous rage. Holly's eyes were puffy and red, her hair unkempt. Richard looked imposing in a tailored suit, fists clenched. Marjorie wore an expensive-looking coat and brandished a stack of papers. "We need to talk about compensation," Richard announced, voice cold. I suppressed a tired laugh. "Compensation for what?" Marjorie shoved the papers at me. "The wedding fiasco, obviously. We sunk tens of thousands of dollars into this event, not to mention the lodging expenses, the catering, the advanced bookings. Your display ruined everything." I glanced at the itemized receipts. "You do realize your daughter cheated on me with Kylan last night, right? I'm fairly certain they're the reason everything is ruined." Holly's face twisted with indignation. "You had no right to ambush me in front of all those people. You could have just canceled, quietly, if you didn't want to go through with it." "I had every right," I seethed, anger flaring anew. "You and Kylan humiliated me. I returned the favor. Don't act surprised by the consequences of your actions." Richard's voice rose. "We paid for half that wedding. Your parents covered the other half, but the final cost soared far beyond what they contributed. We want the money back. Let's call it $15,000. That's only part of our total losses." I stared in utter disbelief. You think I owe you 15 grand for a wedding that your daughter sabotaged? Marjorie's mouth twisted. You performed that vile stunt with the projector. We had important guests there, clients, donors, local officials. You humiliated us in front of people who control reputations. We can't let you walk away without repaying some of the cost. I nearly laughed at the brazenness. Let's not forget, none of this would have happened if Holly had kept her legs closed the night before our wedding. Holly flinched. You jerk. Maybe if you'd been around more, if you'd cared about my needs. I cut her off with a sardonic snort. Oh, so it's my fault? You know what? Get out of here, all of you. I'm not giving you a dime. Richard drew closer, towering over me. Do you have any idea who you're messing with? I have influence in this town. So you've said, I replied. But you're forgetting I have that recording with your daughter's face and that timestamp. If you want to throw your weight around, go ahead. We'll let the court of public opinion see the raw footage. I'm sure your donors and local officials will love rewatching it. Then we can discuss who's humiliated. They stared, the fury on Richard's face intensifying, but he hesitated. Holly tried a different angle, stepping forward, eyes full of tears. Daniel, please, we used to love each other. We built a life together. Let's not destroy everything over one mistake. One mistake? I asked, voice quivering with disbelief. It wasn't an accident. You chose to do it. I saw and recorded it. There's no going back. Now get the hell out. Richard's shoulders slumped in defeat as he realized he had no leverage here. Sure, they could threaten me, but the evidence was on my side. Marjorie let out a haughty sniff. You'll regret this. I shrugged. Not half as much as I would have regretted marrying your daughter. They stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. My head fell back against the wood once they'd gone. A wave of exhaustion and bittersweet relief overcame me. It's over. There was no wedding, no fiancé, no best friend. A hollow triumph. But still a triumph. Word spread fast. Friends reached out with support, shock, or judgment. I repeated the same story, how I caught them. Why I exposed them at the wedding. Some called it brutal, others epic. I ignored the critics. Kylan texted once, dude, I'm sorry, but you gotta understand. I ignored it. He lost his job soon after for dishonesty. Fitting. My parents were torn. Heartbroken over the money lost, but relieved I dodged a disastrous marriage. My father reassured my mother, better money lost than Daniel's dignity. I promised to repay them. The Chambers tried damage control, spinning lies about my outburst and jealousy, but the guests saw the truth. Their reputation was ruined. Holly, disgraced, drifted between friends, maybe even back to Kylan. I didn't care. I moved to a cheaper apartment, threw myself into work, and slowly rebuilt. Heartbreak lingered, but anger drove me forward. Over time, the scandal faded. Still, I kept a clip of that hotel footage, just in case anyone ever questioned what really happened.